Good morning and welcome to the SP Streamer live show. I'm your host, Michael Simione, and today we're bringing you the first of many live shows that we will be doing here at SP Streamer. These shows will be all about streaming and working that waiver wire. For our first episode, I decided to bring in my good friend and host of the Pull Hitter podcast, Rob Dipietro. What's going on, Rob?
Not much, Mike. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for you for this brand new thing that you're trying out, and I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I figured I'd give it a go. I don't know how it's going to go, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, I feel like live stuff is kind of up and coming, and it's fun to just kind of have, I guess, audience kind of, interact with you if they want to and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So, as we talked, we're going to discuss a lot of streaming on here, mainly both hitting and pitching and a couple of other subjects as well. So first I thought we'd start off with something a little fun, and we're just going to talk about some interesting pitching performances from last week. Just kind of things that caught our eye, and maybe we're going to be looking at these pitchers a little more moving forward, that kind of thing. So, Rob, I know you brought two pitchers. So do you want to start and talk about those two first?
Sure. But before we start, you said last week. We're still in this week, technically.
Well, you know what I mean.
I know a lot of people have like that always had to be. Well, what do you mean next? Which Monday is next Monday, right? Like
Monday through Friday.
Yeah. So I was really impressed with Rich Hill this week going to face the Yankees. He went 6 2/3, no earned run, 9 Ks. I got 19 whiffs, 38% CSW through 104 pitches. The four-seamer, which is crazy, 21.2 swinging strike percentage at 88.6 mile per hour. And the EV on the fastball, too, is just real low. So just a real impressive performance from Rich Hill. His last four, he's 21 2/3 with 11-3 K to BB percentage and a .83 ERA, 2.88 FIP, 3.2 Sierra. Good old Rich Hill, he's bringing it back, Mike. And this was just, I know the Yankees, everyone says they aren't rolling yet, but it doesn't matter. Still really impressive performance here from Rich Hill. What do you think about his performance?
Yeah, I mean, he's been on fire lately, kind of. I think it's just, again, with Hill, it's a matter of staying healthy. I actually had him on a team to start the season, and he started off slow, and I dropped him, I guess, like an idiot. But, I mean, I thought maybe he just finally hit that cliff because he's like, 90? So,
no, it happened too in the NFBC, Mike. A lot of guys who speculated on him dropped him in the main events, and then he had a bunch. I think he had a week where he was scheduled for a 2-start, and then they said he would be the follow-up. So a lot of people kind of like, oh, this is going to be his route, and they dumped him. And he's just come back with a vengeance.
Yeah, I know, and he was only going 4 innings too, so I think, he might be limited, so I didn't bother. But no, I mean, he looks great. He's always had that killer curve, man. And if he could just stay healthy, it should continue.
Yeah, and like I said, he had 15 balls in play in that game, and they went for an average EV of 86.4, 85.2 on the four-seamer, and the league average is like 91.5. So for him to throw the fastball that slow and not get hard contact on it, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to go one here. I'm going to go with Logan Webb. He just had a really good performance. He went 6 innings pitched, 1 earned, 10 Ks. And what he did was really interesting. His command basically was just on point. He was keeping everything low in the zone. He was putting his fastball low, and then he was hitting them with the changeup. And when he can when his cold strikes are on point, so like when he's touching the edges of the zone and he's getting those calls, I think this is what you can see from him, and this is kind of like what his ceiling looks like. So I have a quick video here of the changeup. So before I continue with this, so I mean, think about how he's putting sinkers low, right? And just keeping it down. So if you tunnel that with a changeup that moves like this, which you're about to see right here, just drop off the freaking face of the earth, how are you supposed to touch that? And that's, Nate Lau or Low, however you want to say it. That's him coming nowhere near that pitch. So yeah, I think, this is interesting. I hope that he could continue with it because I think it's smart what he did. If he could keep everything on the bottom half of that zone, he'll be really hard to touch because of that changeup. So what do you think about Webb as well?
I love Webb. I actually have him as a crazy recommendation later on for a double start that people might not think he should be. But I will. I'm a big Logan Webb fan. I think he's on probably 80% of my draft champions teams. When my route of pitching in DCs was pretty much pocket aces or at least early pitching. Fill it up with everyday bats and then speculate on some late pitchers that I thought would just get me some innings at least, and hopefully with like an uptick in quality. And I think he's on that path. And especially like you're showing, like when you can really get guys to dip low in that zone, and like you said, the tunneling stuff it looks great so far. So I hope the Giants keep him in the rotation. I know they were briefly considering put him in the pen, and then Sanchez and Cueto kind of had like back-to-back injuries that kept him in, and I think he's going to prove that he deserves to be in there.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, give us your second interesting performance from this
week. It's going to be Patrick Corbin. This is it. This is the Patrick Corbin in 7 innings, 1 earned run, 5 hits, 9 Ks, no walks, 32% CSW. But the four-seamer, right? The four-seamer came out of nowhere and it sat 92.7. That's pretty impressive because it's like up 1.5 from his 3-year average. I was really impressed with that. He got the slider whiffs, which is what we love to see. Threw 49 of them. Got 13 whiffs for a 37% whiff rate on that. I just like to see him catch a little bit less of the plate, I think, with the sinkers. And it seemed to be a little bit of a problem for most sinker guys throwing sinkers anyway. But the one thing I think that he's getting a little bit unlucky in is his home run to barrel rate. He's given up 10 homers on 12 barrels. Usually that should be probably about 6 or 7 homers. Still a lot, but not as much as he has right now. So I think once he gets that, I know we always talk about some guys who maybe give up loud contact, like one of the things that people were very hesitant with Shane Bieber about. And Bieber, Corbin's at that right now with his exit velocity and flying balls and line drives. So really, he's getting pounded when they hit it high and hard. But I think that'll come down. I think that'll regress a little bit, and I think he'll keep this going. I like what he's shown the last 2 or 3 starts in terms of the velo. And I think that was a big concern for people, and I think his velo all the way around is up, even on his soft, right? Even on the changeup. I like it. I like what I see. I think that
quick question for you. I don't know if you looked. I'm just curious. I don't even put you on the spot either. Did his velocity stick through the whole game? Do you know?
It did.
It did. Nice.
I'm pretty sure good. It did. Yeah.
That's big then.
Yep. And, maybe it's just a case of the cold weather stuff, the whole start-stop last year, treated everybody differently, right, Mike? Some guys are just a Superman and can just now it didn't bother me. And some guys are very routine, and maybe it did bother them. So I think the Patrick Corbin from like 2-3 years ago, dominant, maybe is gone, but I think it's still a very good pitcher in here.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where he goes moving forward. I mean, or how he performs. It's definitely interesting, especially what he just did. And I know he threw the slider a ton in this start, so I hope he continues to do that. My second performance for this week is just going to be Jordan Montgomery. He went 6 innings, 1 earned, 9 Ks, had over 30 CSW on 4 pitches.
Damn.
And 9 whiffs on the changeup. He was rolling. He kept the fastballs high up in the zone, what you want to see. Put the breaking balls low and away. In his last 4 starts, he has a 3.74 ERA with a 3.2 FIP and a 22.1% strikeout rate. I think we likely see the ERA stick around there moving forward, but I think he's really good because he's got that deep arsenal. Like I said, a 30 CSW on 4 pitches in that last start. It's just a matter of him trying to become and stay consistent. I feel like there are times where he looks fantastic like this, and there are times where he's kind of struggling through the start. But overall, I think it's going to be more better than worse, and I think we're going to get a pitcher who's going to give you that high 3 ERA.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Monty real quick?
I like Monty. I think, like you're saying, the multiple pitch mix and the effectiveness of them is pretty solid. And I was looking at a couple of things that from Tommy John pitchers in their second years and such. And a lot of people talk about the velo coming back, but a lot of pitchers mentioned like the repeatability coming back. So, I think we're starting to see that with him. I just think like he's getting more in sync with his body. And I mean, he's got that on. I know you can't chase wins, but he's the type of pitcher being on the Yankees, that they come a little easier for some other teams, even when they're not hitting well. I like Jordan Montgomery going forward. I think a lot more than I liked preseason coming in. I think
nice.
I just wanted to see it, I wanted to see it a little more. And I think I'm seeing it recently that I like.
I was pretty big on him coming this season. So hopefully he proves me right moving forward.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, so we're gonna kind of switch gears here now. We're gonna kind of go into streaming and what to look at. So when it comes to streaming pitchers, I think it's extremely important to look at the opposing offense. I've learned throughout the years that I feel like it's actually more important than the actual pitcher, believe it or not. So offenses to stream against overall right now, we typically like to look at last 7. So I'm going to point out 3 teams real quick. Mm-hmm. First one's going to be the Cleveland Indians, who, have been no hit and all that kind of stuff. They have a 45 WRC plus, a .538 OPS, both last in the league. And they also have a 37.9% chase rate, which is highest in the league right now. Then you have Tampa Bay Rays. They have a 35.1 strikeout rate, highest in the league in the last 7 days. And then they also have a 68.4% contact rate, which is last in the league. David Peterson just absolutely annihilated them last night. And then I wanted to also point out, obviously, Rockies on the road, something you want to target. They just had a homestand, but 70 WRC plus, a 0.94 ISO, and a 266 WOBA, all bottom of the league on the road. So, Rob, just some real quick thoughts. What are your thoughts on Cleveland struggles, the Rays struggles? I feel like the Rays struggling is somewhat of a surprise because we know they love to, platoon a ton, and usually they're pretty successful with it. And then also the Rockies on the road. A little flip question there: are you benching Rockies hitters when they're not at home as well? So I kind of threw a lot at you there. So let's start with Cleveland, Tampa Bay. What are your opinions right there on those offenses?
All right, so I just I was looking at Cleveland's. I know you play and you have your content is geared for a lot of daily and week, like short looking spans. So I got into looking at the what you sent over, the splits and stuff, a little more in depth than I normally do. So with Cleveland, it's weird. Like they don't really have on their team hitting page on StatCast. They don't have like any red or any blue. It's like middling everywhere. And they're actually among like the better teams in CSW for batters. So they're not swinging through a lot of stuff. But the thing is they have only 4 replacement level players above OPS. Yeah, it's just one of those. I don't know if it's one of those things, Mike, where like when the offense as a whole like is just pretty weak. Is everyone trying to do too much? Because maybe that's where the chase stuff is coming from. I don't know, but it's like I feel like maybe everyone else is pressing to pick up for J-Ram, who's obviously just like immune to everything. It doesn't matter. But Cesar Hernandez has been super unlucky this year. Like he had 11 barrels, only 3 homers, 248 BABIP, 217 batting average, and a 282 XBA. So maybe once that picks up, like the offense could come along. But I think it's just coming from the fact that they don't really have a ton of impact bats. They have guys who are like good hit tools, but they don't hit it like extremely hard, and they're not difference makers. But I think the one difference maker will come, and I see Ahmed Rosario getting a lot more comfortable in center field and shortstop. And I think the bat's gonna come along, and I think we're gonna see a little resurgence here for Ahmed. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah,
obviously
he's starting to hit a little better.
He really is. And Francona mentioned he mentioned, like, listen, like this kid is he's been through a lot, and he shifted organizations where he came from a place where he thought was going to be his home. He came up, and now he's trying to learn center field on a new team. So I think to overcome that and to like start playing as good as he is, and I think I saw it on MLB Network. They were pointing out that he's so far I haven't looked it up, but like his defensive metrics is above average in center and shortstop. So to have a guy that like and I think, like I said, I think he'll be utilized more on the base pass. I think he stole a base last night, and he's starting to look sharp. The only thing, I think you're going to get good streaming ratios and numbers against the Indians, but the one thing I don't like streaming pitchers against the Indians would be if you are trying to get wins, like if you're playing a wins league, because they are they're a good team. They have a winning record. The not only is the starting pitching really good, but the bullpen is mint. So you got to have a good, you have to play well to beat the Indians. So like I said, if you're in a wins league, it's not a lock you're going to get one against the Indians, but you're probably going to get some good numbers the way they're hitting right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
For the Tampa Bay Rays, they just, they're just swinging through everything. But if you kind of look at their profiles right on their team, they don't really have, like, that's their team makeup is like big swing and miss. Like they don't really have a ton of guys that like are designed to contact guys, and if they are, they're not like impact contact guys like Yandy Diaz, Wendell, and Margot. They're gonna put the bat on the ball, and Margot's heating up. I think he's gonna have a good season. I think he's going to be like a 15-15 lock. They just don't, is this a byproduct of not having the same lineup ever? Like, did that stuff make an impact on like continuity in players where, that it affects their, their swing and miss? But like you mentioned, the 35% K rate is
not good.
It's really not good. But it's like, I go with the same thing as the Indians, right? If you're in a wins league, and you're trying to stream wins, this is a good team. So you might get some ratios, but to walk into like a win is rough. But the one thing is they have a really ton of lift in their profile as an overall team. They're like, I think they're second in fly ball percentage and fifth in launch angle. So, and they're at the bottom of the league in EV on fly balls and line drive. So if you're going to hit it that high and often, make sure it's impactful. And it just seems like they're not getting that type of zip on their on their fly balls and line drive.
Yep. All right. So back to the Rockies, right? So on the road, they're terrible. So I was kind of flipping this question with you. Not really talking about just streaming wise. So if you have a Rockies hitter, do you think you would bench them on the road compared to, I'm sure it depends on who it is. But because they're so bad, is it out of this? Is it crazy to be like, any Rockies hitters, they'll just bench them when they're on the road because they obviously suck and can't do anything?
Oh man, I think it's obviously like league context. It always obviously where it always starts.
How about this? What Rockies hitters are there any Rockies hitters you would start regardless, home and on the road?
Yes, I would.
And
who would I would still start like McMahon regardless. I probably still start Blackman in most leagues, right?
Right. What about Tapia?
Tapia probably, there's not a lot of leadoff hitters who are staying leading off every game, right? And playing every day. I think that's a lot of value, especially in like 15-team leagues and even 12-team leagues. I think he's definitely a guy that you can find value, within your lineup. As long as you don't have like a full team of Tapias, right? Like if you have a nice balanced team, he's a nice guy to plug in there. The guys I am benching would be like the rotational guys, like Jonathan Daza, Josh Fuentes, and to some point Garrett Hampson, because he actually had the 7 stolen bases, only has 1 on the road, and he gets a ton rotated. So I think those guys would be safe to sit, but they're top hitters. And Dom Nunez, I guess, again, league context, if you're in a 2-catcher league, you're probably going to want to play his bat right now, because even though he's going to bring down your batting average, he's got a lot of thump in the bat. So for deep catcher leagues, you're probably playing him.
All right. So let's move on to some splits here. So obviously, again, when streaming, you want to look at lefty righty splits because that's important as well. So I'm going to run through these real quick and then just get some two thoughts from Rob on these. So right now, teams to stream against offenses that are basically struggling against right-handed pitchers. So you got the Brewers who are last in WRC plus, Seattle's last in WOBA and OPS. Detroit has the highest strikeout. And some others who are struggling right now include Cardinals, Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Baltimore Orioles. So that's all against right-handed pitching. So Rob, I thought the one that kind of stuck out here, everything was kind of obvious to me here. We know the Brewers struggle at times. They did all of last year. Seattle, obviously, Detroit, whatever. So what are your thoughts on the Cardinals, though? I was a little surprised to see them here.
Yeah, very interesting. The Cardinals, they actually have the most plate appearances versus righties. And it's a heavy righty lineup, but it's actually been, I think, a little better with Bader and O'Neill back, and they're starting to, I think, gel together. They moved Carlson up to 2, which I think was an awesome move. And it's they're not striking out a lot. They don't strike out a lot of the team. Got a league average walk rate. I think caution streaming against the Cardinals right now because I think that they're not close to. I know they have their games where they've exploded. They've kind of been inconsistent, but I think that as a whole, they're going to start gelling a lot better than we've seen, especially with O'Neill and Bader. I think that they're bringing a ton of youth and energy into that team. I just love that young outfield, so. But it's crazy, right, to think about all the guys they gave away. Like, they always bring
up. Oh, my. They have the worst track record ever. Yeah, they're horrible.
So it's almost like they're like it's almost like they're like they don't think like that high volatile prospect would, that's not their. I guess that's not their type, the heavy swing and miss, and I don't know. It's weird. Like, they kept O'Neill, but Rosarena is like the same player.
But it's crazy what they've done.
Matthew Liberatore is worth it. Let's see.
We'll find out. I agree with you though. The Cardinals, it's interesting that they're down there again. This is as of late. Well, this is the last 30 days I look at when it comes to against righties and lefties. Gotcha. But I think they're going to come out of it eventually as well. So I wouldn't necessarily see that and be like, oh, okay, let's throw a righty out there against them. So moving on against left-handed pitching, Cleveland is last in OPS WOBA and WRC plus. We know Detroit is horrible against them. They're last in ISO and the high strikeout rate. I feel like they're the high strikeout rate no matter what you look at. Some others include Padres, Atlanta, and Pittsburgh. I wanted to get your thoughts on Atlanta because what's really interesting is in the last 30 days, Atlanta's WRC plus against righties is 115, but against lefties, it's only 54. So what are your thoughts on that, Rob?
Yeah, that's really strange. Again, it's like, it's funny. I'm going to go against myself later when I recommend a team against Atlanta, a pitcher against Atlanta. But I feel like, again, I think you have to be careful with, playing with fire here. I mean, it's like, do you expect this to keep happening? And I think that's I think a lot of things with looking back, like a lot of people, and this is not knocking your process because I love your process, and getting that snapshot of getting a snapshot of what's recent is always great, but it doesn't really always tell what's going to happen next, right? And I think a lot of people, even when they make moves, like when they fab, they live on the L15 or the L14, like that's not a way to pick up guys. It is for volume. I start with that. I look at L14. I look at plate appearances. Okay, boom, and then I'm looking at skills, right? like, is this really what this guy is going to be going forward, or did he just have a good week? But yeah, the Braves are, I think Albie, Swanson, Osuna, Riley, like they're severely like underperforming, especially their X stats. So I just think that sooner or later they're gonna start heating up. But it is interesting to see their struggles with lefties.
Yeah, so I've done this for a couple seasons now, 3 seasons, and what I've found is every team does this. every team, it doesn't matter how good your offense is, you're going to eventually run into a cold streak, right?
Right.
But you got to know which teams you can like kind of believe in the cold streak, right?
Yes.
So like the Yankees, beginning of the year, they were so bad, but I would not stream against them because any moment they can bust out with their hitters. And you don't want to pick that day. You don't want to run into that day where you're streaming a crappy guy against them because they're not playing well. And then all of a sudden Stan and Judge are hitting like 3 homers each and you're just getting killed. So it's a matter of knowing, there's of course context. I found that last 7 days is better than last 14 or 15 based on past research. And I think it's just because it catches the trends quicker. Because I'd rather catch a trend, I'd rather catch a team on the downfall than being on the bottom already as well. Because the teams on the bottom already, they're eventually going to move up. It's just a matter of time. So you don't want to catch it at that time where they start. Like Detroit was horrendous for 2 weeks. And now all of a sudden the past week, they're like one of the best offenses. That's just the way it works. It happens. So you got to make sure to kind of catch those trends. All right. So we're going to move on to 2 start streamers for this upcoming week. Why don't we start with your pick, Rob?
My one, because after you took 2,
your interesting pick here.
After you took 2 and you say you could bring 1 or 2, and I'm like, there's not many left.
I'll talk about one as well. I'll leave one of there in the.
No.
All right, let's talk about yours because yours is very interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna recommend Logan Webb. I know he's at Cincy and versus LAD, and they're pounding righties. I totally get it, and this is crazy move probably, but my brain comes from like 15 team deep NFBC, and I know like even in a regular league though, I think I'm making this move. Like we talked about what he's been recently doing on the mound. I love like the 26.5 call strike on the sinker, 30% DSW on 3 pitches, above average swinging strike on 3 pitches. And interesting is 34.8% put away rate. He's behind Ohtani, DeGrom, Peralta, Burns, Kershaw, Glasnow, and Erod.
Wow.
It's a pretty good list. 3.5 Sierra. His walk percentage is a little high, but if you look at ball percentage, which is a good indicator of expected walk percentage, this is you can find the research in Baseball HQ and the Baseball Forecaster. It's a wonderful tool to really trying to see whether or not a pitcher can expect his walk rate to go up or down. And he's got like his expected walk rate is probably like 8.5, which is way better than what he's showing at the 10. And I feel like he's gonna give you 5 innings in both games, and just going by those stats, I figure I give you 11 Ks, and I think that in any league, even maybe a low 4 ERA with 11 Ks, I'll take it.
Yeah. It's funny. You just have more kahunas than me, Rob, because I wrote him down eventually, and I was gonna like roll with it, but I decided not to. I was like, I don't know. I feel like he could handle Cincy. Dodgers scare me a little bit, but they sometimes go on a little cold streak, so it actually could. Right. It could definitely work out. The one I'm gonna go with, actually.
Before you start, I tend to roll with these high volatile like 2 starts. If I feel like it's so like I don't know, I try to most of my teams right now, at least, so maybe this is the mindset I'm in, that like I have a good pitching foundation where if I add him, I don't feel like even if he has 1 or 2 bad starts, I don't feel like I'm gonna crumble, because like I have solid pitching staffs all the way around.
And it probably helps you out fab wise, because you can get these guys for cheaper, because people are gonna look at Logan Webb and be like, I'm not gonna take that unless I get him for cheap. And maybe you could just try and anticipate that go a little higher, while people will be paying more for someone I'm about to mention, like Casey Mize.
And if if anyone's listening who plays in my leagues in NFBC, he's not available because I have him in every single fab league. But go ahead.
There you go.
Sorry, Mike. Go ahead, Casey Mize.
So I'm gonna roll Casey Mize. I talked about him in a recent on the bump actually, and it's really interesting what he's doing. I mean, his last 3 starts, 18 innings pitched, 3 earned, 3.5 FIP, a low WHIP, a decent strikeout rate, and it was against 3 pretty good offenses, including the Red Sox and the White Sox. And basically, what he's doing is increasing his fastball usage, which typically I prefer the breaking balls, but that's if you want strikeouts. Mize has never really been a strikeout pitcher, especially in the minors. He's more so of inducing that weak contact. And, he's using the sinker really well, low and inside against righties. And then he's got that really good slider that he puts on the outside against righties. So it's really hard for them to kind of adjust to that kind of movement. And then kind of opposite with the lefties. So I think what he's doing, he's starting to kind of come into his own. And the pitch mix is starting to help him. And he gets Seattle, who we've talked about, who we just kind of mentioned. They've been struggling. They strike out all the time. They're just kind of mess. I know they got Kelenic now. I hate to mention his name, but which will definitely improve that offense. But I mean, they got a lot of swing and miss in there. And then the Royals as well, who strike out a ton. They can struggle at times. They can get really hot, but they can get really cold as well. So I think Mize should be able to handle both of those. I think he's an interesting, good 2-start pitcher.
Nice.
All right. So
I know they mentioned one thing, the Tigers. I know this had nothing to do with probably next week's stream, but I think I read something that they talked about lowering his pitch count or his inning or his innings going forward.
Okay.
Not like full on, but I think they mentioned it as they are going to be aware of it going forward. So I'm sure we're expecting that. Yeah.
Right. We also were thinking, 6-man rotate. They're going to call it Manning eventually and stuff, and kind of go to 6-man, all that kind of stuff too.
And I guess nobody thought Jose Urena was
crazy,
even respectable. He's
crazy. I know. All right. So we're going to look at just some streamers for next week. Not 2-start streams, and just someone that we think can be, is in a good spot overall. If you want to grab them a couple of days ahead, whatever you want to do there. So Rob, why don't you start off with yours?
I'm going with David Peterson. And we just talked about Atlanta and their struggles, versus the lefties.
Yep.
But I'm mostly doing this for his 2-start next week. He's going to be at home versus Colorado and the Braves again. So I really love what he's been doing lately, right, Mike? Me and you watch him a lot.
Let's throw up his slider and just watch it on repeat.
Throw it up.
Yeah.
There was a couple.
There was
a couple of pitches last night versus the Rays where we could see him get that little bit of juice in him, that little bit of fire. Like he put it in there, and you can see the body language was like he was ramping up. I don't know, I pick up on stuff like that, and I know you always talked about like him being such a bulldog type of pitcher.
Which to cut you off real quick, which was interesting because like yesterday he did that, but his start before that, it was so weird. He looked so flustered. Never seen him like that. He was getting angry at the ump. Like it was very odd. So I was glad to see that yesterday. Again, when his back is against the wall, that's when he starts to perform best.
Right.
So continue, Rob.
And it's so funny because like who knows? Like we break fantasy down so much, Mike. Like we're like, he couldn't get out of this one inning. Like, he just had like a bad day, like obviously when we have stuff personal in our days, it doesn't really reflect in our work either. So, the baseball players are humans just like us. And I think we got to remember that every now and then. But, just even on the season, Peterson, 31.2 CSW, 20 K minus BB, 3.4 Sierra, 3.14 xFIP. The homer per fly ball is 27.3. I think that'll come down. But it's also his EV on fly balls and line drives has been lowering the last couple of starts. So, I love it. I think you'll get 2 good starts next week, especially versus the Rockies at home. I know I'm warning against the Brave offense. We talked about that, but I think you'll get enough from Peterson that you'll be happy with his 2 starts next week and what he can do versus Atlanta this week.
So did you watch his start yesterday, Rob? Were you able to watch? Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of hate that I have this video against a lefty, but how many times did he throw the slider just like this against righties and was inside and low on them? And they just whiffed, like came nowhere near it. The slider is so good. When he could set it up right, he's a gem, man.
He had a couple of like
just,
check swings that their bodies just went forward. Like you could just tell, like, whoa.
Yeah, and he you know what it is? I mean, you could say it's about so many pitchers, but it really is just the command with him. When he's on, I mean, how many hitters did he retire in a row after that that tough second inning? It was like something ridiculous.
Especially like when he was hitting that outside middle edge versus the lefties with the fastball. It was just like boom, it would pop right back into the zone, and you could just see there was like, again, you mentioned like him getting past things. There was one or two where he should have got where you're like, come on, like where I'm checking the strike zone on StatCast. I'm like, that's a strike, like but then he came back right back with the same pitch, same spot, and got it, and and I like that.
Yeah, man, 100%. we're big Peterson lovers here.
But I think it's well noted. Like our good friend Phil mentioned on my podcast that that he's a first round pick, right? He's got the pedigree, right? So this is the guy that I think we expect a lot of things of pitchers when they first get drafted and first come up, and maybe we lose sight. Like this is this is the real him, the real David Peterson. So I'm excited.
Yeah. It would be so good for the Mets if he could continue this.
With Carrasco and Thor.
Oh, I know. But then they might have to go like, and then you got Taiwan, then you got Stroman, then you got DeGrom. It's great. It's good to see depth, All right, my streamer that I'm going to pick for this week I'm going to roll with Spencer Turnbull. He gets Seattle again. We kind of pick on them, definitely strikeout prone, all that kind of stuff. His slider in his last start had 10 whiffs with a 62 CSW. You do not see that every day.
No way.
Lets you know his slider's really good. I think he's really just undervalued, especially if he's on. He's got two really solid fastballs. The sinker is not as great as the four seam. I wish he threw the four seam a little bit more. And then, he's got some good breaking balls outside of the slider. I think he's a sneaky good addition to people's teams if they do want to add him because of the deep arsenal. So that's Spencer Turnbull against Seattle. And just to reiterate for Rob here, David Peterson against Atlanta and moving forward because he's a good 2-start week afterwards.
I do too, Mike. I agree with you that Turnbull is, I think, underrated.
Yes,
completely. He just like a lot of things that pop off, like above average for strike, 67%, below average walk by a lot. Swing is 4% above league average. Ground ball too, over 50% ground ball. I like that. I think especially what you like. Just keeping expectations in check. Like if he's your number 5 starter,
right? Exactly.
Number 6, or if he's your number 7, that's wonderful. I think you got a great staff. If he's your number 7 pitcher.
I'm gonna pop in a question here real quick off Twitch. He's saying they're asking, are better days ahead for Charlie Morton? I personally, I feel like I kind of looked into him recently. I do think so. I know he's struggling, but I think the curve is still there. I think he struggles with the command a little bit. I don't think we're seeing that clip from him. I know this is probably likely his last season, but I think there's better days ahead. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I definitely think so too. If you look at, let's see, Sierra 389, which is below league average. So, above. So doing well there. Average EV is 87. I like that. Call strike percentage is one of the best in the league. CSW over 30. So if you go by those metrics, I think there's rebound here. His expected ERA is under 4, so it's a full run. I think the one time I did look into him, it just seemed like it was like a repeatability thing. Like his release was kind of a little scattered. Yeah,
which he'll fix. He's a veteran. I mean,
he's a veteran.
he's good veteran too. He's just a matter of if he stays healthy, he'll make the right adjustments. I believe he'll be fine moving forward, and it sounds like Rob does as well.
Yep.
I'm going to move forward here, though. For those who don't know, Rob has his own podcast called the Pull Hitter Podcast, and he actually does do a really good episode every Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And right, it's every Friday.
It's every Friday.
So he kind of talks about the week coming up and who has how many games against righties, lefties, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to let Rob kind of take this away. So we're just going to talk about notable like hitter happy schedules coming up when it comes to facing a bunch of lefty pitchers or righty pitchers, that kind of thing. So why don't you go on with that, Rob?
Cool. Yeah. So the podcast Mike was mentioning, I put out Fridays, and it's if you're playing an NFBC league where you set your batting lineup for Friday to Sunday, or if you play in any league, like playing a couple home leagues that we do Friday to Sunday, and even for daily leagues, I just give you a quick snapshot of lefty versus righty, matchup that you could take advantage, and also lineup trends, just looking at who's in the lineup every day and who sits versus lefties, who sits versus righties, just for that, that volume play. Because, once the lineup start to come out on Friday, I know like me for the NFBC, like I'm just like, if it's close enough where a guy is sitting on Friday and I know he might be now just getting 2, and even for a lesser player who I think, this guy might be getting 3, you have to take those things into effect. So for this week, versus right-handed pitchers, the Texas Rangers are playing 7 games versus all righties. So I would be looking to get Willie Calhoun on your team for sure. He's been leading off all the time versus righties. So I would scoop him up. He seems like he has a low ownership on Yahoo and ESPN, and even to extent David Dahl. If you're in a really deep league, and he should probably find a ton of at-bats versus 7 right-handed pitchers. Dodgers, Minnesota, and Cincinnati Reds are playing 6 games versus right-handed pitchers. So, if you're in a league and like Gavin Lux, Luis Arias, or even Larnack is available, especially the Twins, they're playing 8 games. So that's an opportunity there to get some volume, especially like Luis Arias. I think he's just a wonderful bat on the top of the lineup
100%.
Against the Twins. And plus, he's like, I know in the NFBC, he just qualified for outfield. So now he's 2nd, 3rd in outfield. Again, you won't find him in my leagues because I have him everywhere. But, but no, I totally like him atop of the Twins lineups, which I think is a little bit underperforming as well as a whole. But Arizona, they have 5 games versus right-handed pitching and 2 in Colorado on Saturday, Sunday. So I'm looking at Pavin Smith and Dalton Varsho for sure with the injuries there from Christian Walker and Asdrubal Cabrera. Pavin playing first base, and Varsho is starting to get utilized as well instead of just pinch hitting, which is awesome. If you're in a league where he qualifies as a catcher, which is probably most leagues, definitely not. These are the weeks you probably want to grab him. Versus left-handed pitching, Baltimore has 4 games, so I would shoot for Austin Hayes. He's 18% owned in Yahoo. He's played every day, I think, in the last 21 games straight. So this is, he's starting to round into form, except for his speed. He hasn't attempted a stolen base yet, but his hit tool is starting to catch up to what we expected of him. And the Angels are playing 3 games. Versus left-handed pitchers, and with an opportunity to play every day. I'm kind of liking Taylor Ward. I'm digging him a little bit. He's pretty sneaky. He's got this sneaky speed in him. He stole like 11 and 10 in the minors. He's got this pop to him. He's like this big, tall, mammoth guy who can move and sting the ball. I think if he gets an opportunity, like sometimes, everyone's always waiting for, and I think we've seen this. It's all across baseball a lot of times, but everyone's waiting for that big call up, right? And this guy who gets his opportunity before this big call up says, "What about me?" Right? And I think this is his moment. I think this is his moment to say, I can be that guy too. I'm not saying he will, because Joe Adele and Brandon Marsh are probably way better than Taylor Ward. But if he gets on a roll right now in that lineup, I like him. I think he's been batting 4th and 5th. So pick him up.
Yeah. So just to recap, you got against righties, Rob suggests Calhoun, Dahl, Lux, Arias, Larnack, Pavin Smith, Varsho against lefties. You might want to look at Hayes, Mountcastle, and Taylor Ward.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move into more hitting streamers for the upcoming week and who we like. I'm going to start off real quick, Rob. So our someone at our website, Josh St. Marie, actually does a weekly streaming hitter article. It is fantastic. I highly suggest you follow him on Twitter at UT Streamer, and also read his articles. I have to say, it's actually one of the most read articles we have on SP Streamer because he's got a really good system and he seems to consistently be right, which makes sense because if you know Josh, he's like a ridiculously smart person. So I'm going to kind of just roll with what he's putting out there right now. His system loves Starlin Castro a lot the past few weeks. I looked it up. I'm not including yesterday here, but this week minus yesterday, he was hitting 583 Starlin Castro. He's just good for that average base, could get you some runs and RBIs. He's going to be facing the Cubs and Red Sox in this upcoming week. And then power-wise, if you really need those home runs, you should be looking at Justin Upton. He gets 8 games this week as well. He's still showing power with above-average ISO, above-average barrel rate, slugging percentage. His max exit velo currently sits at 116.5 miles per hour, which is the highest of his career, his entire career. So he's got the power in him still. He's going to hit those home runs. Obviously, the average is going to, can hurt you. But if you need some power, he is definitely someone to stream if he's out there, especially with 8 games coming up this following week. All right, Rob, who are your 2 hitters?
I got I'm going with 2 guys I mentioned already. Pavin Smith. Again, leading off for the Diamondbacks, pretty solid offense. I've been really impressed with their ability to just keep producing offensively, even with all these injuries, right? With Marte and Calhoun, they're just rounding guys in and out, and it's pretty impressive. I like their depth at the bat, but Pavin Smith leading off, going to play every day. Got that first base outfield eligibility, which is mint, first corner outfield. He's got 3 games, like I said, 3 games at Colorado, which is 2 versus righties, which I love. Great discipline so far. He strikes out 16% of the time, which is awesome. Zone contact, 95%. That's like up with the guys like David Fletcher. Like he's consistently putting the bat in the ball. 94 miles an hour on fly balls and line drives. I love that. He hasn't been lifting the ball as consistently, but I think maybe that's not his swing, right? Maybe this is his way. But if he does find a little more lift, I think he'll get some more power production. But I love what I'm seeing from Smith so far. Willie Calhoun, he's led off every game that he's faced versus the righty, with kind of Halifa going back to the bottom of the lineup, which has also been a great player this year.
He's been good. Yeah.
He's been awesome.
Especially Yahoo Leagues. I grab him Yahoo Leagues catcher. Can't beat him at catcher.
He still has it?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a steal at catcher, because even if he doesn't produce as much as the other catchers, the amount of PAs he's going to get is going to
PAs, right, Mike?
It doesn't matter. He's going to outproduce everyone just strictly with the PAs. It was a gem of a pick this year. I didn't say anything to anyone because I didn't want anyone in my I have a 16-team league in Yahoo, and I didn't want anyone to know about him. And I actually have a co-owner in there, and we grabbed him like ridiculously late, and it's worked out tremendously for us. Sorry, go on.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. So, Willie Calhoun, he led off versus righties all time that he play. Anytime a righty's thrown this year versus him, he got 7 games as righty, 12 to 8K to BB, which is pretty awesome so far. Zone contact 92%. Again, guy doesn't chase. Same 94 mile an hour exit velocity, fly balls on drive, 80% percentile max EV. I like the volume he'll get you this week. He does have some tough pitching matchups, which I will note. He's facing Cole, a couple of decent pitchers like you mentioned, Montgomery. I think I forgot his later matchup later in the week, but I just think the volume will be there, and he looks like he's settling into something.
He's just a solid bat. He was kind of breaking out before he got hurt.
Right.
2 years ago, was it? Yeah. So
and then he got smashed in the face with the pitch.
That's what it was. Yep.
Right. That was big. Like
crazy.
Sometimes whatever. But I think he's getting his shot, and I think I definitely scoop him and Smith up for some volume this week for sure.
So just to recap, some hitting streamers you might want to grab this week: Starlin Castro, Justin Upton, Pavin Smith, or Pavin. Is it Pavin or Pavin? And then Willie Calhoun. I got to get better at names, Rob. All right. So
do you have the pronunciation guide? Do you have the pronunciation guide?
No.
Oh, it's Pavin. It's Pavin.
Okay.
It is. Yeah.
All right. Before we go, Rob, tell everyone where they can find you on Twitter and anything you got coming up.
Right. So at Dead Pull Hitter on Twitter. I have also a page for my podcast. It's at Pull Hitter Pod. It is the Pull Hitter Podcast. And I do one pod on Mondays or Tuesdays, usually recapping main event Fab for the week and the NFBC. But it's not only applicable for NFBC. This is where like the high level guys are moving players around with a lot of money at stake. So I think it trickles down. I think you could listen to it and you could understand how you can use it to leverage or how to like see the player trends. And I do it with spstreamer.com writer, Mr. Todd Whitestone. You know, he accompanies me. He writes the article on the site every Monday, and then we do a podcast about it. So that's what I do at least once a week. I also do the Friday lineup. And I try to sprinkle in one pod a week with a guest, and we'll just talk about whatever, like 3 up, 3 down type of things on, hot players and cold players, or, talking about their teams so far in industry leagues or wherever they're playing in. And that's where you can find me.
Yeah, I highly suggest anyone who watches this to subscribe to Rob's pod because, again, he has these high stake guys on. He's focused on high stakes, but it completely works for your leagues as well. It's just a good way to see how these guys are successful and how you could kind of implement it into your own game. So it's a very valuable podcast. For those who somehow don't know me, even though you're watching this, I'm Michael Simione. You follow me on Twitter at SPStreamer. We have a website, spstreamer.com. We're going to try and do this every single weekend, hopefully every Saturday or Sunday, something like that. I'll kind of, tweet it out the Friday before to let you all know. We're going to try and keep it consistent, same time every week. Again, we talk about streamers, a lot of good information. Please subscribe to our Twitch and YouTube if you can. That would mean a ton. And that about does it. So thank you all for watching. Stay safe, and we'll see you all soon.